All right, so you've just been informed by your school administrator that you're going to be teaching via Zoom on Monday. It might be 100% teaching kids all at home. It might be 50-50, half the kids in class, half the kids at home. So the first thing I want you to do is take a deep breath and you're going to be fine. It really is not that hard to manage once you get used to it and kind of get in the rhythm of how you manage a class and actually deliver your content. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, if you're going to be teaching via Zoom, the more stuff you can do digitally, the better. If you're still kind of the paper pencil person, you can work that route too. So today on Coffee, Computers, and More, I'm going to show you the basics of delivering content to your students via Zoom as well as in your classroom at the same time. Now, if it's 100% Zoom, that also works too. So what I want you to understand is how you're actually going to launch Zoom on your machine. It's going to depend if you're running a PC or if you're running a Mac. And how your kids are going to access Zoom is going to depend if they're using iPads or Chromebooks or MacBooks or PC computers or anything like that. So how everybody connects is going to be run by your school's IT department and the programming. But at a minimum, I can teach you just a little bit about the very basics of running Zoom, how to manage a class, and how to make sure that everybody can see the same thing at the same time. So let's go ahead and get started with basic Zoom instruction 101. Okay, so at the minimum, your district is going to have to show you how to get signed into Zoom, in which case you're going to be staring at a screen that's very similar to what you see right here. Whether you're running it on a PC or Mac, it's going to be very similar. I do apologize for the graininess of the video quality. I'm using some screen capture software and my built-in webcam on my PC. So essentially, once you get signed into Zoom, you're going to have an option to join with computer audio. You can also test your speakers and microphone if you want to. I would say join with computer audio. And that's going to ensure that you're going to be able to play your sound, your microphone's going to work, your speakers are going to work, and all that fun stuff. Now, this is kind of your command central for the Zoom, okay? You can mute yourself right down here in the bottom left-hand corner, so if you don't want any background sound, you can click on that. Nobody will be able to hear anything coming out of your machine, like if you need to talk to somebody in class or whatnot. You can mute yourself if you want to stop your video. You can click right here to turn off your camera. If you've got different headsets in or headphones in, or you want to use a certain kind of microphone, the little arrow just off to the right of mute is going to give you the options for where your sound is going to be coming from. So by default, it's just going to go ahead and use the microphone that you have off of your computer. Okay, so like I said, you also have an option to stop your video if you want to turn your camera off. Right here, you've got the participants list. If you click on your list on the right-hand side, they're going to show you who's actually in the Zoom chat right now. Right now, it's just me. I'm going to go ahead and send an invite to my wife here in a little bit, and she's going to join in. Just to protect her privacy, we're going to keep the camera turned off. She'll have her audio muted when she comes in, so there's no volume coming in from the background. I always have my students turn off their audio so that there's no audio that's going to be disrupting the rest of the class, so my students are always muted when they come in. Now, I do like to have my students turn their video on so I can confirm that they are actually in the class, but what your district's going to allow is going to depend on the rules that you have to follow. It might be a different situation if you've got little kids. You might not be able to turn the cameras on. We were talking to your students at home. They might have to leave the cameras off. I know they want as much interaction as possible in the district where I work, and I think that's a good thing. Now, you've also got a chat box. If you click on that, there's a little chat box on the right-hand side where people can type in comments, and because the audio quality is sometimes kind of rough, I have my students type questions in that chat box, or I can type questions, or I can have students respond in the chat box over there. I also direct my students to make sure that you keep the chat on task so it doesn't turn into just a gossip session. There's also little icons where your students can respond with yes or no. They can tell you to speed up if you're taking too much time, or they can tell you to slow down if you're lagging. I don't really have the students use those buttons, but if you click on more, they've got the little cup of coffee icon, which is I need a break. They can clap for you. They can give you thumbs up or thumbs down. So those are all little reactions that you can have your students give if you want them to thumb up something or thumb down something or answer a question and so on. You've also got the share screen option, which if I click on that, that is going to share the screen that you and I are seeing. So the students are going to see everything on the screen, okay? They're going to see all your background, your icons, and everything. So you can do that, and you could run it from one screen, but the problem is that you kind of need to be running a participant list. You need to keep your eye on the chat. I have a student attendance roster on the screen at the same time, so I can see who's in class versus who's actually there. You're going to have students that might be popping in a little bit late. So my actual screen that I look at when I'm teaching is my command central, okay? I do run a kind of a split screen option where I can't remember what the button combination is on the PC. I'll tell you here in a little bit. On a Mac, it's Command F1, and that will send a second desktop to, let's say you have a projector plugged into your computer. If you're running Apple TV, you can connect to Apple TV and run a second desktop. And that's basically a place where you can literally drag contents from your screen to the right, and it's going to show up on a second screen that the kids in your classroom are seeing. Okay, so I'm going to show you how that works out. I am actually going to share the screen. So when I do that, I will click on um, share screen, but then I choose the second desktop. So all that the students at home see is what my students in class are seeing, which is what's being projected on the screen. It sounds really complicated, but it's not. If you've ever plugged your computer into a projector before, you can basically run a second screen or a split screen. What's cool about that is that allows me to run the class on the second screen, which the kids at home are seeing and the kids in class. Or if you're running 100% Zoom at home, all your kids at home are going to be seeing that, but then it also lets me to control my class, who's in the class, the chat, the participants on the screen I'm currently staring at, which is the screen in front of me on my computer. I like to use Google Classroom. Anything you put on a computer, you can share with your students and they can see it at home. Okay. So that's going to be the share screen option. And you would click on that and you would have an option to choose the second screen, which I'll show you that here in just a little bit once I hook the computer up to the TV. You can record the Zoom session, but again, that's going to depend on your district's policies. But say you got a session that you want to record so your students can go back and watch it later if they're sick. Okay, that's an option for you. There's also the reactions bar where your students will be able to give reactions to things, or if you're in another Zoom podcast with somebody or another Zoom session, you can react with thumbs up or hands clapping and so on. If you can see right there, you got a couple different options. And then there's the more box, and this will allow you to go live in certain locations, turn on closed captions, and breakout rooms. Now, breakout rooms is a whole separate video. We're not going to really get into breakout rooms. They're pretty easy. Basically, you send people off into breakout rooms, which are unsupervised sessions where they can work together. So for high school kids, it works good when you have groups of 4 or 5, and I stop in and say hello, and I watch the kids working in the breakout room, and that allows them to know that I'm actually keeping an eye on them. So breakout rooms work great, but they're a whole different type of management system, and I don't want to overwhelm you with that right now. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and hook this PC up to the computer screen, and this is going to kind of simulate what would happen if you had your computer hooked up to your projector in your classroom, and I'm going to show you what a second desktop looks like, as well as how to share a screen, okay? The other most important part is the end session, okay? This is going to allow you to end the session, and from there, it'll officially end the session for everybody watching, and that's going to be it. Okay. Now, I mean, this is just kind of touching the iceberg of everything that Zoom is capable of. If you want to invite students into your class, you would click on the invite box. When you do that, it's going to bring up an option for Gmail or all these different email types. Honestly, it kind of depends on your school. Some schools, the kids are going to get an invite that you have to send through Power School or through Synergy, Student View, and stuff like that. It really depends on what your school district has. Some kids might get an automatic invitation, and you just got to have Zoom running, and they're going to show up in your classroom. And some of them you may have to invite those students. Now, sometimes on Zoom you have an option under participants. There might be a little up arrow right there, and you can click on that, and there's an invite option. My Mac does that, my PC does not. And from there, I can actually type the student name in a little box, and it's going to bring up that student, and I can send them a manual invite. Now, what I really like is the one where you simply have a seating chart, and you can click on it and send those kids an invite. There are certain learning management systems that go that way too. So don't worry about that. Your school is going to tell you how you're supposed to connect your kids. We're here just to worry about how to manage those kids. So I'm going to go ahead and send an invite to my wife right now, and she's going to jump in, and then we're going to go ahead and turn on the projector, and I'm going to show you what I see versus what she sees. All right, hang tight. Okay, so the invite has officially been sent out. As you can see, it says one person is waiting. If you have 15 or 20 or 30 kids, it could say 15 people are waiting or 20 people are waiting. And it says Shauna, who's the guest. You can admit that person or remove that person. Now, in real time, I have a roster in front of me, and I'm looking at the roster, and I'm looking at who's coming in to make sure it's only students that I'm admitting in a class. I highly recommend you do that. So you click on you're going to click on admit, and then it's going to go ahead and let Shauna join us. So there she is. Now, if you've got like 15 or 20 kids that are jumping in, you're going to have little boxes with all of their names on it. And Shauna's going to go ahead and mute her audio when she jumps in here. So if you look on that participant list on the right-hand side, I can mute her. There's also more options. I can remove her if I have to. I mean, I try not to do that, obviously, but you can if necessary. And when you click on participants, you can see that she's muted her microphone and turned off her camera. Now, if I want, I can type a message. I can say hello and send that message out there to everybody. If she had her chat window going, she would be able to see that message and she could chat back. So there's a little message I leave out there. That's also a way for the student to communicate with you. They can also send you a message without everybody else seeing it. So if there's a problem or an embarrassing situation, whatever, they can communicate with you and let you know what's going on. So right now, what Shauna's actually seeing is what you guys are seeing, which is just the video feed, and that's it. Okay. So we're going to hook the computer up to the television, and I will show you how to share your screen. Okay, so I currently have my PC plugged into my television. You might have your computer plugged into a projector. You also might be doing this over Apple TV. Okay, so basically I've got my PC plugged directly into my television right now, and I have it set up so there's a second desktop that is running on the television, which would simulate maybe having a projector in your classroom. You might be able to connect wirelessly, or if you have a Mac, you plug in your cable to your projector, and it's going to immediately send the same image that's on your screen up to the projector. But what you want to do is you want to run a second desktop, which is Command F1 if you're running a Mac. And on a PC, there's a couple different ways you can do it depending on what kind of a system you're running. Okay, so essentially, we're looking at what we were looking at before. So now what I want to do is I want to make sure that Shauna can only see the second screen and not the current screen that you and I are looking at, because off to the right, I got a participant list and I got a chat going on. Oh, Shauna says hello. So when you push on share screen, it's going to give you lots of different options. Okay, the simplest one that you can do is what's called screen two. So in a Mac, if you hit Command F1, you're going to see screen two. On your PC, however your PC runs, you're going to have to set up a second screen, which again, it's just sending another video signal through your projector. So we're using one machine with two different video signals. So we push on screen two, and right now, what Sean is going to be seeing is actually screen number two. Okay, so now we have a slightly different mode. So this is what happens when you share your screen. There's a couple things that have disappeared here. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and switch over to my camcorder, my camera, which is filming that second screen, which would simulate exactly what your kids are seeing at home and those people in your class. Okay, so we're going to do that real quick. So this is essentially what your students are going to be seeing as soon as you share screen number two. This is all that they're going to see. They may or may not be seeing your camera. I keep my camera over on my main computer because that's where all the other student cameras are at, and they're not actually seeing that. So basically we're looking at what we were looking at before on our computer. Up at the top it says your screen sharing, and as soon as you drag your cursor off to the right over into your second screen, this little box is going to pop down, and this is where you finally have all of your options. Now, if you want to bring that participant list back up on your first screen, the one that you're commanding everything from, you'll click on participant list, and that participant list is now shown back up on my PC screen, which is PC screen number one. And then if you want that chat box to come back, you got to click on chat again. So unfortunately, every single time that you do a screen share, you're going to have to do this at least one time. So I'm going to grab that and drag it off to the left, which is actually going to drag it back to my main desktop. Okay. Now to deliver actual content, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my computer and programming course, Google Classroom, and I'm going to drag that off to the right. Right, so here we go. So if my students were watching screen number two, this is exactly what my students are going to be seeing. If they're zooming in, they're going to see my camera. If they're in class, obviously they're going to be seeing me. So what I do is I just have everything loaded up on tabs. My lesson and stuff is all ready to go. And right here, we can go over to code.org. So this is what the students are seeing. Now, what I like to do is just to put everything in Google Classroom, and I have it all posted right here just as a listing, the homework assignments, everything the kids click on. I typically have a lesson plan that my students can follow, and that's going to have all the links on it and so on. So if you're a teacher, you want to show off your homework, you can show it off this way. So all I'm doing is just running a separate window with a bunch of tabs on it in my class. So here's one to go to code.org. Here's one where we have the coding information for Google Drive, where I store all my work. You can make it as simple as you want, but if you just want to simply have just a picture that you drag over to that second desktop, or maybe a prompt or an assignment or any kind of material or literature that you want them to look at, you can basically run it off of this second screen. Okay. Now let's pretend that class is over and it's time for everybody to go. What are you going to do? Well, what you need to do is you need to stop sharing the screen, and what that's going to do is that's now going to bring your video feed back to the kids that are watching at home. And obviously your kids in class are going to be seeing you, so it isn't going to matter. So go ahead and stop the share. And then at that point, I'm also going to turn off my second video feed. I guess it doesn't matter. You can leave this up if you want to. And we're going to bring it back to my main desktop. So as you can see, I've got this window that's going on in the background, and that's essentially the classwork that I just showed you. So when you're running that second desktop, you just literally grab your window and drag it off to the right of your computer screen, and it's going to go over onto that second screen. So you've got your stuff sitting over there while you're running your command center, your Zoom command center right here. And so that's just one way to do it, and that's essentially how I do it. It's very simple. Everything's ready to go. I do find that by having a written out, just very simple to interpret lesson plan with all the links and all the material right there, or everything listed in Google Classroom, it's very simple for my students to see what we're doing. So if they get disconnected or they can't get back in or they don't receive an invite, they at least know where to go so they can get the classwork. That's one easy way to do it. So that kind of in a nutshell is what it takes to get your second desktop running, how to screen share, and so on. Okay, so don't get me wrong. If you just want to share the current screen you're looking at, you can always do that too just by clicking on share screen and then just click on screen number one, and the kids are going to see exactly what you and I are seeing. But I do recommend you do the split screen option. It just seems to be a little bit easier. It's a little awkward, and depending on where you sit in your classroom and how good your eyesight is and so on, that part might not work for you. I stay fairly close to the screen the whole time, so it's easy for me to see. But if you just want to run everything off your main screen, you can do that. But understand that every camera that you have in your class is going to take up space. You're going to have only a limited amount of space on your screen, so that's going to depend on how you want to run it. But basically, in a nutshell, that is essentially how I deliver content. I just bring it all from Google Classroom. Everything is right there. I run through my lessons with the students, and we're good to go. But again, you want to have it set up. It's always nice to have a lesson plan so the kids can follow along in case there's lag or just in case they don't understand what's going on or if they get disconnected and so on. So when it's all said and done, when you're done with your class, you got a little end box right here. You hit end, and that's going to end the presentation, which is also going to cut off my video feed. So anyway, I want to thank you guys for watching today. If you have any questions, let me know. I might make another video on breakout videos, but do understand that it's really hard to make kind of a one-size-fits-all Zoom video for everybody because the PC interface is a little bit different from the Mac, which is different from the Chromebook, and so on, just to kind of give you a heads up. But in a nutshell, that's essentially how it works. Run the second desktop, drag your items onto the second desktop, and run your class that way, and use your main screen as your command center, okay? All right, so in the meantime, oh, and by the way, you can ask to unmute the student. You can mute the student over here. There's a lot of options that we didn't really talk about, but I just wanted to cover the basics to let you hit the ground and running. But in the meantime, thanks for watching Coffee, Computers, and More. Hope you enjoyed the video. Oh, and on the PC, it's F4. The F4 key on my PC is what brings up a window that lets me choose if I wanted to use one screen or split screens or dual screens and so on. So that's F4 key is what it is. It's Command F1 on a Mac, so I thought I'd let you know. But anyway, this is Coffee, Computers, and More. Thanks for watching. I hope you helped you out a little bit on this, and then also maybe show some of those parents how we run Zoom in the classroom. But in the meantime, I want you to have fun, be safe, and as you know, we will talk to you soon. Y'all take care and have a good one. By the way, you click on leave and meeting for all, and you are gone. See you later, guys. Bye-bye.